This video brought to you by the Bose Headset 10.
And by WX Weather.
Hello everyone, you're watching AvWeb's coverage of AOP Expo from both Frederick, Maryland and San Jose, California. I'm Paul Bertorelli reporting. I'm with Craig Fuller, who's the incoming president of AOPA to replace Phil Boyer. Congratulations, Craig. We'd like to cover some brief items with you just by way of introduction. You're coming into the AOPA president job with absolutely the perfect background. You have public relations experience recently. You have political and legislative experience going back to the Reagan administration and more recently the Bush 41 administration. Tell us a little bit about that, and also how that you're also a passionate pilot and an aircraft owner.
Well, thank you, and thanks for this opportunity to visit. I've been an avid viewer and reader of the material that you've published for some time. You know, I have been involved in politics and public affairs really all of my adult life. I got involved when I was a student at UCLA in the administration of then Governor Ronald Reagan. I was a pilot at the time as well, so I flew myself back and forth from Los Angeles to Sacramento. But I represented lots of different groups and organizations to the government, both at the state and the federal level. I served 8 years in the White House and had a chance to serve in the government, which was a tremendous honor and a privilege. But the opportunity to take sort of my professional passion and combine it with the passion I've had for flying now 40 years is really a remarkable opportunity, one I'm looking very much forward to.
The job of being AOPA president really is, to a large extent, a public relations job, is it not?
It is. It's also kind of an ambassador. You're the spokesperson for general aviation. You're out there, I think, to explain to the rest of the country what general aviation is about, why it's important, what's impacting it throughout the country. So it's a very big public relations, government affairs, public affairs job. I think that today, anyway, and certainly the way Phil has done this job, he's turned the position into one as the leading spokesperson for general aviation.
In some ways, you're coming into the industry probably as the most challenged president as a result of economic conditions. What are your thoughts on that, and how much impact do you think an association like AOPA can have on those sorts of large market forces that no one really has control of?
Well, there are definitely a lot of challenges out there. First, I think it's important to say that AOPA is in a tremendously strong position as an organization. I've been involved in other associations. I'm on the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. AOPA is remarkably well positioned to not just weather the storm, but serve its members as we go through what have to be some pretty tough economic times. You know, I think we are out there on the front lines, though, talking about ways to reduce any added burdens, such as user fees or taxes on what we do. We have a real concern about fuel, aviation fuel, making sure it's available, hopefully at costs that don't continue to escalate. It's good to see those come down. So I think during times of challenge like this, it's every bit as important that AOPA is out there making sure their members are represented and where public policy is being discussed.
If you were to rank those challenges, government encroachment and regulation, economic conditions, and fuel, what looms largest in your mind on the first day you're on the job? What's the one that you're going to be thinking most constantly about?
Yeah, it's a little bit of the perfect storm, I guess, in some ways. You can't really ignore any one of them. I think that probably the area that our members turn to us for most help on, it has to do with overregulation and fees and taxes that would impact our flying. You know, the overall price of fuel or gasoline is not something that we by ourselves can affect dramatically. But I think we have to remind policymakers that at times when it costs more to engage in general aviation activity, we need to prevent them from adding additional burdens. So I think it's probably first and foremost making sure we're well positioned in the government affairs area, which, by the way, we also have, of course, a whole new administration coming in. We're going to face new appointees at the Department of Transportation, Homeland Security, obviously FAA, and that's it. So working right from the start with this new administration that's coming in is, I think,
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Now, in a previous interview, I asked Phil Boyer about his view of whether or not a Democratic administration would be friendlier to GA than a Republican administration would be. He seemed to think that GA has fared better under a democratically dominated Congress. Do you share that view, or does it matter?
I think for many of our issues, there's not really a partisan slant to what we're talking about when it comes to holding down the cost of general aviation, or when it comes to safety for sure, or security. He has the experience I don't have, but I think going into this, I don't approach it so much from a partisan standpoint that one side is better than the other. I think we have to take our case to the leadership in both parties. We'll find support, as we do today. We'll find support in both parties for our point of view. We also have to take our case across the country, because really sometimes your most effective advocates are the people located outside of Washington, maybe governors, and of course our members who are of both parties, to be sure.
Speaking of outside of Washington, one of the biggest issues we face as an industry is the pressure on airports of all sorts, noise, regulation, land pressure. What can AOPA do about that? It's a very difficult fight to wage. What can the association do?
I have a Bonanza that I base in Leesburg, Virginia, and in Leesburg we've certainly seen the encroachment of the community of houses around that airport, and we have a very active group of people at the Leesburg airport, citizens that live in Leesburg, that fight that. And so I've seen it firsthand. I actually think what we need to do is find better and better ways to bring the expertise and the strengths of AOPA to the local community. The ability to organize, the ability to communicate on the internet, to build essentially coalitions of supporters, the sheer analytic capabilities we have to help make the case. At the end of the day, the local citizen, the local pilot, is always going to be a more effective spokesman than somebody who comes from Frederick, Maryland to explain the case. But we can arm those people with good facts, good information, and I think we need to do that. I'd also like to find ways to do more to predict where we're going to have problems. So we're not entering the contest after the sides have already been chosen and the conflict is alive, but where we think there may be questions where an airport doesn't have the financial support, or it's losing financial support or public support. Go in and try to do some things earlier on so that we can prevent some of these problems.
That leads to one last question, and it's an economic question. Are the days of using a personal piston aircraft for practical transportation on the way out, or does your crystal ball foresee a way that that will again become as popular as it was, say, 10 years ago, or as practical as it was 10 years ago?
I said when I spoke to the assembled staff of AOPA several weeks ago that I think in many ways the mission is summed up as making sure the best days of general aviation are still ahead of us. And that means using your personal aircraft for personal transportation. So I think it's possible. Excuse me. I very much think it's possible, and it's going to continue. I certainly use mine that way, on business and for personal use. And I think that we need to make sure that people can continue to do that. I don't think those days are going away.
And speaking of transportation, have you been able to pry the keys of the jet away from Phil?
I've been in the right seat a few times. We actually have enjoyed flying together. He's also gotten in my Bonanza and flown with me in the right seat. So this transition's given me a chance to get inside the AOPA's various aircraft, and I look forward to doing more of that.
Well, congratulations on your presidency. We're looking forward to working with you, Craig.
Thank you so much.
This is Paul Bertorelli reporting for AvWeb. You've been watching AvWeb's continuing coverage of AOPA Expo 2008. Thanks for watching.